All right, welcome back to Mile High Hoops. Today we're talking about the LA Clippers, and our theme for the AI generated pictures today is Skyrim, The Elder Scrolls 5. So here we've got Steve Ballmer looking dapper in some leather armor. But we're gonna really dive deep on this one, kind of like most of these. But we're gonna talk a lot future with these guys because they've got an aging roster. So let's get right into it. Like, subscribe, and let's go. All right, so I usually start with additions or young players in these videos, but I got a lot to say about Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi is one of my favorite players to watch in the last decade, especially 2015, 2016 when he was battling it out with the Warriors. He was a whole different monster. He was absolutely terrifying. Um, I think around that time there was a lot of debate of who was the best player in the NBA. There was a lot of talks of, I mean, of course, LeBron and KD and Kawhi. And when watching Kawhi play against any of them, it was really hard for me to not think that he was just superior to them. I mean, he's probably one of the best defenders of all time on the wing, and then he attacks on offense in such a similar way to Kobe Bryant that it's scary to try to deal with him. I mean, he gets to the mid-range jumper and just pulls it up in front of people. He gets by people and can just dunk over anybody with how long his arms are. His hands stretch from here to Massachusetts. And he's just got crazy bounce. I mean, he's incredible. His passing has really gotten better over these last few years, going from like a 3 assist per game guy up to 5, which is a pretty good improvement. Um, but the issue is, I mean, after the Zaza Pachulia thing where he rolled up on his ankle and then had like the quad injury for the year after that, and then now he just had a partial ACL uh, repair done. So hopefully he can be back to his true self. When the league kind of shifted back towards all these duos with like LeBron, AD, Kevin, Kyrie, and then Paul George and Kawhi, I really looked at this duo as the scariest one and the one that I thought could do the most damage, but they've just been the most injury prone. I mean, all of these duos have, but this one substantially worse. Now, on to Paul George, or George Paul. Paul George is probably one of the most unfairly criticized players in the NBA. Probably up there with LeBron. But Paul George just an absolute unit on defense and on offense. I mean, the season in OKC where he put up 28 points a game, like he was on a whole nother level. Since being on the Clippers, I mean, he's back to like the 21, 23, 24 points a game type guy. But he shoots the ball so dang well. He gets to the rim so well. I mean, he puts up about 7 rebounds and about 6 assists with 2 steals. So, I mean, he's a very well-rounded player at this point. So him and Kawhi together are just such a great fit. The only criticism that I ever really have stood on with Paul George is that stat that came out where he was like 0 for 27 in crunch time to like take the lead buckets. And then a Gatorade commercial came out where he was shooting a three from deep and he yells, "Ball game," as he swishes it. And there was always a joke amongst my friends, like whenever we'd miss like shooting something into the trash, we'd yell "Ball game," and it was just really funny, just making fun of Paul George in that way because that was pretty corny when that came out. Like it made zero sense. Like no one stepped into Paul George and said like, "Yo, dude, like you're 0 for 27 or whatever on go-ahead buckets. Like let's have you dunking and like yelling or something in this commercial. Nobody said that. Now we'll get to John Wall. So the Clippers just signed John Wall. I believe it was to a 2-year deal. Yeah, about it was mid-level, so about 6.4 and 6.8 next season. Um, this picture didn't really come out looking like John Wall too much, but anyways, I think for John Wall to be successful here, literally all he has to do is I'm expecting him to come off the bench behind Reggie Jackson, but he just needs to come onto the court, play the solid defense we all know John Wall can do, and I mean just run pick and rolls, run the court, be hitting open shooters, get to the rim if he can, maybe take a mid-range jumper every once in a while, but I don't expect they'll expect too much offense out of John Wall. I'd really like for him to get back to his old self. It's just, I mean, he's what 32 at this point. Yeah, so I don't imagine he'll be back to Wizards John Wall, but I would love to just see if he improved back enough to where he could take that starting spot. If he did improve to that level to where he was even just a starter, I think that would raise the ceiling of this Clippers team quite a bit. They'd have three really lanky wing defenders and or guard defenders. John Wall is a taller guard though, so he could defend some wings. But and then if they also have Robert Covington on the court, that'll be a menace of a defense. Now, speaking of Robert Covington, I mean he has been passed around more than the Jenners between Ben Simmons and Devin Booker, but I think he is a wonderful fit for this team. The Clippers traded for him and Norman Powell last season, and I believe Covington is just the perfect guy to have at the power forward spot in this team. I mean, they can try some of the Rockets ball with him at the five. I wouldn't really like that too much unless they're matching small ball on another team. But Robert Covington just really fits with everything they're trying to do. I mean, he's like about 6'7". He can defend almost every position. He has definitely lost a little bit of a step on his perimeter D, but I mean, he shoots the three at pretty much 37-ish% his whole career. And I mean, his free throw percentage is up in the 80s. He gets about 5 or 6 rebounds, gets about a steal and a block. I mean, you can't really ask much more out of a role player. And I mean, he's just the quintessential role player. And to put him on this team with so many switchable two-way defenders is just very valuable for them. And on to Norman. I just gotta say, I'm super impressed with how the Clippers were even like able to make this trade happen to get both Covington and Norman Powell. But Norman Powell, as a guy coming off the bench for them, I would assume, is just like a different type of Jordan Clarkson or Lou Will for them. I mean, he's just a pretty good creator. He can shoot the lights out of the ball. He was pretty much at a 40% for his entire career, which is just pretty dang good, especially when he takes so many off the dribble too. But coming off the bench for these guys, I mean, they have plenty of good passers. So having this guy that can come off and give them 18 or 20 points a game is just huge. Um, I think he just also just really raises the ceiling because any given night they've got at least 3 or 4 guys that are going to be dropping 20 a night. And with a recipe like that, with how many defenders they have, as long as health isn't an issue, they're going to be scary good. And we'll get to some of these other guys here pretty quick. Nicolas Batum, I mean, just another long, tall guard, or not really guard, but wing, but a lot of guard skills. I mean, he can pass the ball really well. He's pretty much been kind of this like passing small forward that can shoot the ball pretty well for his entire career. And I kind of think this might be one of his last hurrahs this season and maybe next season. He's still just been a great shooter for them for these last 2 years, but I think he's just slowly and steadily losing athleticism at a rate that would make you think that he's going to be about done. And then Marcus Morris has been really good for them too. It's pretty amazing how many of these big wings they have. He's pretty much one of those guys for them that seems like he can just drop 20 as well. He averaged 15 points a game for them last season, and so he's just he's just another big wing on this team. This team is just loaded with wings, and at a 36, 37, some years 40% three-point percentage, I mean, he's just another perfect fit. He can defend multiple positions. I'd say pretty much 3, 4, and some fives as a bigger guy. And so, yeah, he fits really well. Now, the last guy to spotlight here is definitely Terrence Mann. It's hard to project kind of where he can go from where he's at. Um, but the one ray of shining hope that we do have for him is in that Utah series last year, or the yeah no it was last year. The game six, he dropped 39 points and hit 7 of 10 3-pointers. And so, I mean, you take a game like that, and if you're watching, I mean, he was just in full attack mode the whole time and was pretty unstoppable. But you can't really project that onto a player for the rest of their career. I mean, some guys just have it all come together at the right time like that for them, and then it never really strings together a bunch of those games. I remember something that I read in Andre Iguodala's book where he talked about the thing that was the difference between players like Kobe and other pretty dang good players was their level of confidence. And Terrence Mann in that game had that crazy high level of confidence, and that's something that he would need to have game in and game out to be able to put up numbers even close to that. And with guys like Paul George and Kawhi and all these guys on this team, I don't think you'll have the space to be able to grow that type of confidence. Maybe as a guy coming off the bench for them, if he can slowly and gradually start to increase his touches and getting more shots up, then maybe he could string together about like 10 or 15 points a game. Uh, and most of his number changes over the last 2 seasons was mostly attributed to him just being on the court more. His minutes per game went up by 10 over the last 2 seasons. So, I don't think there's a lot to pinpoint with what he can really improve on. But I mean, maybe 3-point shooting a little bit. I mean, he's at 36% last season, which is still good. So, but if he could become a lockdown shooter and a really good defender, which he's already pretty dang good at that, then he could really elevate himself. But I think he's on a good trajectory and he fits in with his team. He's got that type of dog energy that you really want, and especially for this team that's just loaded full of guys that are all just kind of dogs. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is kind of like future projections for this team. So, Paul George and Kawhi are locked in until the end of next season. Not this upcoming one, but the season after that. And after that, they've got a player option, each of them. And other than that, that season they have Norman Powell on the books and Zubats, also Terrence Mann and Amir Coffey for whatever that's worth. Um, but by then, I think they'll have to make a hard decision. So if this upcoming season goes poorly and Paul George or Kawhi is hurt, John Wall doesn't really work out, and some of these other older guys kind of take a step down, I think they really have to look inwards and make a decision on if they need to start moving guys and kind of blow this thing up a little bit. So when they traded for Paul George and signed Kawhi, they traded off so many draft picks that they don't have a first round pick until 2027. So if this team starts to decline at like an alarming rate, they're going to need to start trading guys off to try to gather first round picks for a rebuild. I think that's just the only way to really do it, unless they're able to flip some of these kind of fringe older guys to growing potential playoff contender teams. Then maybe they can flip them for some younger players. Um, but I really don't see a world where doing that would get them to the point where they could compete again, especially if their main guys are getting injured over and over again. Um, but I just really think that they're going to have to make a really tough decision here soon. For all I know, though, if they have a healthy season, I think that they would be very, very strongly favored to get to the at least the Western Conference Finals, and then from there, I mean, Kawhi and Paul George in the finals is a tough matchup to beat. But projecting them for this next season, assuming everybody's healthy to start, they could easily get 50-55 wins. I've been thinking this team's going to be a first seed for a while, um, but I do think what we've been seeing more and more lately is these teams with more vets that are definitely contenders usually don't end up in that top one, two, or maybe three spot. And so I think like those top couple spots will be like for the younger teams that are really like pushing the regular season. So I mean, this team might end up three, four, five, um, but they're going to be good if they're healthy. I think they have a chance at the finals for sure. And if they get there, then I think they have a pretty good chance of winning it. Whether it's the Bucks coming in from the East, the Nets, the Sixers, the Heat, whoever it could be, I think they match up well, um, and would have a great chance. But with all that being said, please like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you would like for the theme to be of the next videos, images using the AI generator. But yeah, again, thanks and have a good one. Bye.